Hello. Sorry, I'm not going to be sounding like a super bubbly poppy today, but if you've seen any of the previous videos, you'll understand why that is. You might wonder why somebody that is so deep in grief is making videos. Quite a lot of videos, really, because it helps. It helps to feel like I'm talking to you and that I'm doing something that might actually be useful to somebody somewhere, that they might find something in it. And because I feel like I've got something to say, which isn't terribly palatable, but somebody has to do it, and it seems to be me. I'm it to talk about that hoary old chestnut thing of bereavement and loss. Again, seems to be this theme that has cropped up in many of my videos, and here it is again. But I'm not going to shy away from it, because that's not what I do. I'm here to be authentic, and if this is coming up, then this is what I talk about, because I can't pretend it's not happening. We'll look into that a little bit more later. I'm focusing on this because this is a painting I did last year called Becoming Winter, and Gary, who I've just lost, my partner and soul love, actually detested this painting, and he loved my paintings, but he hated this one and made me turn it round because he said it was like my death mask. And I think what he was picking up on, rather than me being dead, was the fact that it is the face of a person in deep mourning, as well as somebody who is actually becoming the winter season, which is what it's called, Becoming Winter. But I think he picked up on the intense feeling behind that and he didn't like it. He didn't feel comfortable with that at all, because he was seeing it as me being dead, and I was communicating something probably about loss that he did not want to look at. So yes, he did not like it, and we're not going to be focusing on that painting today. I just thought I would come and look at it again because yes, it is an important one, even though it is completely unlike the things that I normally do. But I did do it, and here it is. Anyway, I'm just going to sort of give you a little look around it. I think there are parts of it, artistically, speaking without emotion, artistically, there are parts of this that I do not like at all. It came out all wrong. I did a whole video about that. But there are parts of it like that, and the trees, the birch and the moon, and there are certain aspects of it that I really like. However, it is not to everybody's taste, and that's not what we're looking at today. We're looking at some Everyday Enchantment Tarot cards instead. There we are. The light has sort of adapted itself. Maybe if I move the painting out of the way, it will have a better job of doing that. But before I do that, I just wanted to say this. Go back and focus on that while I'm doing that. Yes, this is something that I don't think I have talked about specifically in a video. I might have mentioned it in previous books, but of course not everybody has read my books and probably won't. So I wanted to talk about the fact that I've had harbingers, if that's the correct. I have had portents of when people are going to pass away since I was 8 years old, and I think I have talked about this actually, but I'm not going to focus entirely on this. What I've always had up until now has been the sound of a crow, or an actual crow. The first time it ever happened, a very large, it couldn't have been a raven, but it looked very large to me as a child, very large black bird as I thought of it then, but it was a crow, sat very close to the window, which they do not do, especially not in this house where I am now, which I was in when I was 8 years old. I'm back again in it. In my parents' house, the crow came right up to the window on the 31st of October, which, as we all know, is All Hallows Eve, or whatever you want to call it, and it just basically stared in through the window and made its cawing. And this made my mum extremely uncomfortable, because she was, up until she passed away, she was still referring to any sort of corvid, crow or whatever as a blackbird. She didn't know anything about birds at all. She thought that was a blackbird because it was a blackbird. So it doesn't matter how many times I said that was a crow. She didn't she didn't know anyway. So it was a very unusual thing to happen. It's never happened before or since, because it was so outstandingly obvious that it was trying to say something. Because I've lived in this house now for over 4 years, and the crows that visit here are extraordinarily nervous. They're the most nervous of all the birds. If anything makes a noise or goes anywhere near them, they literally jump in the air in fright and fly away. I've got lots of magpies, and they're very cheeky and wonderful, but the crows are nervous here, and they do not come up to windows and eye you balefully through the window and caw a lot, 3 times, whatever they did. It did, he or she did rather, and then it flew away. He or she flew away. It is an awful thing to call a creature. It is so ingrained for people to call creatures it, and I just did it myself. So there, that shows how ingrained it is when I'm so aware of it. He or she did its cawing thing and then flew away, and that night my mum's dad died. Very shortly afterwards, actually, or on that evening. So that was the first time it happened, and then I was kind of aware of it. From 8 years old, I was aware of crows doing unusual things, and they did. The next time it happened, somebody passed away, I think, the next morning. And then it wasn't so much the visual sign of the crows that I was getting. I was hearing the crows. I was hearing crows when a friend of mine passed away the next day. I was in a shop the evening before, and I could hear a crow inside the shop, and I thought, this is a very strange soundtrack to be playing inside a shop. A crow going, "Arr." Pitiful impression of a crow there, Poppy. Yes. There was a crow noise inside the shop, and I said stupidly to the person behind the counter, who was very po-faced, I said, "Oh, interesting soundtrack of crows. Where could I get that?" And she just looked at me and said, "I'm not playing anything," or something of that effect. And then I thought, crow message, but I didn't realise who it was going to be for. And then when I was given a phone call shortly after that, and we turned up at the hospital for my friend, who was pretty much already dead. He'd already departed the building. His body was in the hospital, but he was kind of gone already. As we were going to walk into the hospital, which was really busy, right outside the doors of the hospital, there was a crow just standing there, which again they would not do, because crows do not just hang around with people unless they have been brought up with people. They just don't do that, really. They are not that way inclined, especially not outside a busy hospital where there are people literally coming and going outside that door all the time. They're not like seagulls or robins, which are very bold and will hang around people, but they're not like that. So that was my other message. I did not get any message when my dad passed that I'm aware of, but when my mum was in the hospital for 12 hours and she was gradually leaving her body, there was a crow inside the hospital room doing its thing. So yes, it was a little bit late in its warning because I already knew what was happening, but it did do it. And then for when Gary passed away, that did not happen. As far as I'm aware, there was no crow. It changed. And the message I got, I took as a completely different sign, because it seemed like a positive message, because things in my life were about to shift. And what was happening is I was with him and we would be somewhere, and it was like the first time it happened, it was like somebody stuck a very powerful floral air freshener up my nose. And this was when there were no flowers out at all. No, there was none. There were no flowers. But this was like somebody just literally got hold of something really pokey and went into my face. And I went, can you smell that? Obviously he couldn't. And as soon as it happened, it stopped. And then a little while after that, I was somewhere, and it was like somebody had taken a whole handful of jasmine again and just rubbed it into my face, where there was no jasmine about at all. Nowhere. I went everywhere looking around, and there was no jasmine. And then it happened again when I was out with him, and I said, surely you can smell that. No, I can't smell anything. And again I went and poked about and looked about, no jasmine. The third time it happened with the jasmine smell, we were actually sat in the car, and it was like it just got right in my face, and I said, look, we're both in this car, you must be able to smell that. He couldn't smell anything. It was just for me, and I took it as a good thing, beautiful jasmine. I mean, it was a little bit overpowering, and it obviously wasn't natural, because you don't get it kind of wafted right into your face like that. But that was the message I got. Now, why am I even telling you this? Well, obviously that was the message from whoever, the unseen, that Gary was about to pass away, and I did not take it like that at all. I mean, now I look at it and it's kind of nice and comforting that somebody was giving me something beautiful rather than scary, because I think if I'd have had the crow message then, I would have really, really freaked out. So it was kind that it was Jasmine, but it was, you know, here's something for you. We can't tell you what it means, but it will mean something. And I think what comes out of that is that, you know, it gives you faith. It gives me faith in the unseen, in the otherworldly aspect, which I've always had since I was born, I think, or pretty much since I could remember being here. I've always had that understanding. It's completely innate in me. I've understood it all the time, that, you know, this isn't all there is, and I come from somewhere else, and there are more worlds than this, there are many more realms than this, and I've had so much evidence of that. I'm a very evidence-based person, and, you know, that I don't believe things. I witness them and I know them innately, but I don't just believe them because somebody told me. And I don't expect you to believe this because I told you. But what I'm saying is, have you had that? Have you had portents? Have you had spirit messages? If you want, I hate the word spirit. I don't hate it, but it's so inadequate. It's so corny and naff and has so many connotations. Like the word God, it's got so much baggage and so much kind of silliness attached to it. But that's all we've got, really. So yes, have you had any spirit communications of that kind that have been there to warn you of something? I've forgotten some other ones that I have to tell you about. When an old friend of mine was in hospital, he was due to pass away, but we did not know when. I was with my parents in the car at that time, and we all got, like somebody had stuffed a cloth with TCP antiseptic on our noses all at the same time. I was like, what was that? And as soon as we knew it was there, it was gone. And that was the moment, pretty much, that my friend was actually dying in hospital. So we all got that one. Again, when I was with my wonderful friend, partner at the time, years ago, when we had guinea pigs, and this was after they'd passed away, and we thought we'd well, we were very down, we were very low, and almost immediately we were both given the strong smell of hay was literally pushed into our faces again by an unseen hand at the same time, so we both smelled it. And it's good when you have that kind of corroboration from somebody that it's not just you, like with the TCP. Oh, and again, a couple of years ago, a friend of a friend was in a perilous situation, shall we say, and nobody really knew what was going on with him because he was drinking very heavily, and he'd isolated himself. And I was going along in a car with his friend and got the most overpowering scent of garlic. It was literally like somebody had just started cooking in the car, and as soon as we noticed it, it disappeared. It wasn't an actual physical smell, and I thought, that's a really weird thing. And then, of course, a few days after that, it was discovered that the friend had been dead in his flat for probably since that happened. And why was it garlic? Because he'd been a chef. There you go. And as I'm speaking to you now, a literal blackbird, as in a blackbird, not a crow, has landed in the tree, which is rather nice. But it's not a message. Anyway, the point of all this is not a self-indulgent waffle. It is not to try and convince you of anything. It's actually to say, have you had this happen? I don't tend to look things up very much because I limit my computer use, but I did actually look up, because I hadn't witnessed the smell, the pleasant smells as a warning before, or as a foreshadowing, as some sort of sign from elsewhere. And apparently, yes, it is quite common for people to have pleasant smells as warnings that they're going to lose somebody. So there you go. That's what happened with me and Gary. I had Jasmine, and I honestly took that at the time as being, oh, things are going to change. This is a good thing. I'm smelling beautiful flowers, because I love flowers. I don't like cut flowers. I like flowers that grow. and are left to grow. But this was, yeah, so that's what it meant. And I'm sharing that with you because you might have had it too, and you don't know anyone else that's had it. So I've had it, and then if you've had it, I'd like to hear about your experience, because that's what it's all about. It's about sharing experiences and not about me pontificating, which you probably feel like I am. But you must please excuse me. I would like you to cut me some slack, as it were, or just give me some leeway, because I'm not myself at the moment. I am literally, I think I'm going to have to move my painting. Glare of light while I do so. Okay, let's move this up here a bit. Yes, I'm so professional, I know. This is me, and this is me. So we're back again with the same cards that I was looking at a couple of years ago. Got my creaky gloves on. So yes, I'm literally this. So please, if you think I'm just not really being as focused and as useful and maybe as helpful as I would like to be in my videos, and maybe being a tad kind of solipsistic, I'm focusing too much on what's going on for me and expecting you to be interested in it. Well, I'm not. I'm just hoping that it gives something to you, that it resonates with you, that you will feel comforted in some way by it, or will feel like this is a shared experience because you understand, and that I understand you. That because when I'm talking here, as I've said before, I feel like I'm talking to you. I'm not just talking to myself in a void. I feel like, I hope I'm communicating even to one person, because that really matters. And I think what else matters is that somebody tackles this subject, because it's just like, for me, bereavement, loss, death, the whole passing thing is a bit like the other things that are important to me. My ethos of empathy and compassion for all our relations, be they human or non-human, seen or unseen. So that's been the whole focus of my life, which then leads to kindness and consideration and walking in another's shoes, whether they are a person or a being or a creature or whatever they are. Well, big creatures don't tend to wear shoes, but you know what I'm saying, I hope. Don't expect me to be completely compos mentis here. I am of sound mind, but I'm not, I'm not myself fully. I am here, and I am here. And the fact that I'm even speaking at all is because I really feel like I've got something that I want to share. And I know I'm going to have to make another video, which is really awful, because I take up far too much of your time, don't I? I'm sorry about that. But of course, it's your choice whether you stick around for part 2 or not. I find a lot of people don't stick around for part 2, but I'm going to be looking at the cards in part 2 in much more detail. Anyway, I think it's part of my job to be talking about bereavement, because this is what keeps coming up for me 4 times in 4 years. Everybody that is the closest to me has gone. So how can I not talk about it? It's like it would be like the woolly mammoth inside the tiniest room in the house, wouldn't it, really, if I was ignoring it? So yeah, I feel like my whole ethos for all our relations and empathy and compassion and kindness, and also depict my work depicting all our relations and all varieties of people and creatures, and not focusing on just young, apparently beautiful physical personifications, shall we say. That's been the driving force of what I do, and I think this is probably part of it, this tackling, this not running away from something, and not looking at it in a kind of twee, tokenistic, homily kind of, I don't know, all the platitudes that come with people passing away. I don't want to even, there are enough cards with those things printed on them, and I think we find it easy to just spout those platitudes at people because we just don't know what to say. And I have had so many remarks over the years of, well, people just don't know what to say, and I say, well, say, I am so sorry. That's all. You don't need to say, oh, but time's a great healer and you'll get over it, and they wouldn't want you to be upset, and all that utter foo-foo kerfuffle that I find so flimsy, really. I am a very deep person. If I wasn't a deep person, I would not be delving and looking into things beyond. I haven't had much choice, really, because that's how I came into this reality. I came into this reality with that innate, that inner knowing that I am not this body, I am not this person, I am something beyond that. I came from somewhere else and I will go back there when I have finished doing whatever I'm doing. And I think part of what I'm doing here is focusing on that and reminding us all, including me, that this is not the end. The death is the rebirth. The person in the background there who they can't see, who is no longer of this reality, because that's why they're depicted in that kind of glowing blue form. Right, I think I've talked about in another video that will be coming up or has already been uploaded that I don't think that we are going to be coming back in that way. I think waiting for signs and portents and appearances and all those things are perhaps not going to happen, because I think once we've left this reality, we are out of time and out of space and out of this whole thing, and it's not easy to get back. There are emissaries and there are guides that give us the signs, like the Jasmine. Some kindly being who cares gave me those signs, and they could not give me anything more than that. That's all they could do. But I don't think the actual literal person should come back and give us those signs, but there are intermediaries that will. And my whole focus of everything that I've done, all of my books, starting from Season of Sorcery, which wasn't a good title, but hey, that's the one I wrote in 1995, was trying to share everything that had ever happened to me since I was a child in a real, authentic, non-sensational way, and try and help people and try and encourage people to look deeper and to not be afraid and to understand that we are not who we think we are, i.e. we are not this person. We are having an experience that is extremely painful, but we are not the person. We are just part of all that is having an experience, and then we go back to all that is, to the source. And I wish I wasn't having this experience, but out of it I want something to come, i.e. that I am the person who will talk about death. Because it isn't death, it's just the shedding of the suit that we have been walking around in when the experience is over. And sometimes we don't want the experience to be over, and we don't want the person's experience to be over that we lose. But it is, and they've gone. So part 2, we'll look at the cards and look at some of what's been coming up for me in terms of this particular bereavement of losing Gary, my partner. Okay, thanks for joining me for this one, and I'll be back soon. Bye.